Welcome to the First Customers Podcast. Today we have Sam Eisenberg with us. He's the co-founder of Design for Decks, a boutique pitch deck design firm whose decks have raised over $2 billion. That's billion with a B. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paris. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you here. Where are you recording from today?
Budapest, Hungary.
Okay. Now, what are you doing over there?
Actually, we moved out over here for my wife to attend medical school, so we'll be here for 5 years. It's not quite Alabama, but it's close.
That's right. So for everybody listening, I'm recording from Alabama, so we are definitely in different parts of the world. Thanks for making time. I don't know, what time is it over there?
It is 10:15 p.m.
Wow. All right. So let's start off by learning a little more about you, your background. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small suburb of New York City called Muncie, New York. So it's about an hour north of Manhattan, give or take. Spent, my childhood there, was raised there. And then at 18 years old, I actually flew to Israel for a gap year program, a year abroad. Tended to like it there. Ended up drafting to the military and stayed in Israel, collected a few useless degrees, and eventually moved on. Yeah.
Now, is that a requirement? I mean, is that like culturally and family wise?
So Israel.
Okay.
If you take citizenship in Israel, you are obligated to serve in the military. But for myself, it anyways was a source of pride. I felt that if I'm in a country, it's my way of giving back.
Wow. And how long did you live there?
I lived in Israel for a decade, which I spent the first a little over 2 years in the military.
What was your military job?
I was a tank commander, and then after that, I moved to armored infantry, and I was a platoon sergeant, or I think they call it a drill sergeant, in armored infantry, mortar platoon.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an adrenaline. Sounds like a high adrenaline couple roles there.
Yeah. The military definitely gives you a lot more than you give to it. That's for sure. Definitely, it's military is not all video games and fun and games, as anyone I'm sure can tell you. But there's a lot of there's plenty of mundane time or plenty of non-exciting things in the military. But yeah, of course, you're training for a reason and you're preparing yourself for a reason. And unfortunately, that reason happens more often than we'd like.
Right. Wow. Let's back up a little bit. Before hitting the military years, when you're growing up in New York, did you have any like sales experience or like little kid fundraisers, lemonade stands, and that kind of thing?
So sales, definitely not. Until today, I'm a terrible salesperson, full disclosure. But my parents were both entrepreneurs, local businesses, construction, marble and granite, retail, and they encouraged it as well, subtly. And I think we felt that. We felt that in our household. Our parents were always involved in multiple businesses and always meeting people and helping people. And actually, my first, I would say, business experience, as opposed to I've worked in summer camps and worked in bookstores and all that. When I was 12 years old, my brother-in-law was laid off from a very high-powered position in retail, and he anticipated it coming. The company was restructuring, so he decided he was going to go independent. And after he spent like 13 years in that role, he went and opened up his own store. He understood it very well, and unfortunately, like a few months into his store, he was having a lot of trouble, getting it off the ground. So someone suggested to him. They said, "Hey, why don't you build a website?" And this was definitely long before that was the standard thing to do for any local business or any big businesses either. And he went and he saw Yahoo had a platform built on Yahoo, built his store. It looks pretty terrible. And he said, "Okay, now what? I built a store. What do I do?" So he enlisted me, his brother-in-law. I was cheap labor. I was very excited by it. I was excited by the opportunity to work, excited by the opportunity to grow something. And my role was to bring the first customers to his brand new online store. And they sold party goods and paper goods. And yeah, that's definitely something. I mean, I can elaborate on that a little more if you'd like. What we did there, I know that.
Yeah, for sure.
Just getting started.
You said you were 12.
Yeah. Yeah. I was
And
12.
what was the platform that the store was on?
His store was built on Yahoo, and he was actually so entrenched that even though his store has grown significantly over the last, over 15 years, but he still was on Yahoo. Just moved over to BigCommerce maybe a few months ago. He sold, as I said, party goods and paper goods. And when I came on, I was like, hey, what do I do? I'm starting from zero. I knew less than nothing about online sales, nothing about marketing. So I started learning. I had the power of Google, and unfortunately, a lot of experimentation and a lot of learning things that aren't so good, and a lot of wasting time and coming across things that maybe your average 12-year-old shouldn't see. But ultimately, I did figure out a strategy that worked with our first to get our first customers. And what that was is I knew Craigslist was an extremely popular board. It was an extremely popular platform. So I said, hey, let me post posts on Craigslist local boards, which wasn't exactly in line with their terms and not something I would do today. But as a 12-year-old with zero budget who was experimenting a lot, that was one of the channels I came across. And I started posting, and I was able to see in the back end that I was getting hits. So I said, okay, great. I'm getting traffic. I have no idea if it's good traffic, but I'm getting traffic. And to me, that was exciting. So I started, yep.
So what kind of things were you posting on Craigslist?
I was posting on forums for different cities. I don't remember if I was using the general or for sale. I think I was using the for sale, if I remember correctly. I was using multiple. I don't remember which one became my primary. And I started doing that. And then eventually Craigslist is like, hey, this violates our terms. And I started getting my emails, banned. And I just was opening emails and posting and opening emails and posting and doing this for 3 months. Also trying to optimize the store a little. And at about the 3-month mark, we all got our first sale from Craigslist. So that was really cool. Someone went from Craigslist to our website and ordered products to their home. And that was like an eye-opening, huge eye-opener for us. And I started, doubling down on that, and we started getting even more. I, improved my strategy, so it was working, and was getting maybe one a month at that point. And then eventually we started hitting more legitimate channels and growing through that. We used price comparison websites, Frugal, eventually Shopzilla, and a few of those platforms, and we started getting customers from there. Expanded to eBay, and then the rest is history, as they say. I'm long not involved in that business, but I did take a lot of satisfaction being able to help get those early customers.
Did you say that it took 3 months to get the first customer?
3 months. 3 months to get our first sale.
Wow. So this was a side project for your uncle then?
My brother-in-law, no. He had his physical store. He was all in on his physical store, and it wasn't doing enough. Gotcha. So he went to the online model. He went online out of kind of desperation, and that became my baby. And today that is like the bulk of his business. He still maintains the store, but online is his his market.
Makes more revenue online. Okay. I think that's really interesting. It took 3 months of spamming the forums.
It wasn't just that. I was doing so many things. I was doing these things where you watch ads and they give you ad time. So I'm watching useless ads. Other people are watching my useless ads. I tried like a dozen different tactics, which were all completely useless. And Craigslist is pretty useless too. But after 3 months, we got a sale. So there's something there.
Gotcha. Yeah. At least gave you some signal that there's potential.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. And how many years were you involved with that?
Heavily involved, I would say probably just the first year. Over time, there were points where I came in and out just to help with different points. Like as I did learn more about e-commerce and marketing, even today, like here and there, I'll help. My brother-in-law, we're very close. We'll have a call and he'll mention something, a pain point of his, and I'll help try to solve it and help give suggestions. And I helped him hire freelancers to for his marketing team. But 1 year, I would say intensively. A few years, a little less intensively, and then today, very, very infrequently now and then.
Yeah. So that seems like a really formative experience, though, having that direct boots on the ground business experience at 12. And then, okay, you see what it can take to get customers. Then you go to the military eventually. Then after that,
actually, briefly, a step before that, I'm sorry. I thought that I was going to be designing websites, but here's the thing. I am not a designer. I have no creative eye. So I started offering my services to different friends and family, like, hey, I'll build a website for your business. And I did it. And a few people paid me for build these different websites. And honestly, they were pretty terrible. but it was their first online presence, so they were happy. And then I think eventually I realized like that's not my calling. I mean, I knew I had to be involved in innovation and business online, but less so in building the actual websites.
Gotcha. Okay. And so Design for Decks is your main business now. Tell us a little bit of the backstory on how did that get started? Or what
Absolutely.
led you to that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's like a series of fortunate events, I would say. Ultimately, I've spent the last 4 years or so working in online courses and selling all sorts of online programs. And I learned a thing or two doing so about marketing them, about building educational content, about getting people involved, user experience. Anyway, so I was doing that as my main job, and I always had run side hustles, consulting and the likes. A close friend of mine was working a very high powered job at a Series D startup, and he decided that he wanted to build an online education program for himself, and he hired me as a consultant. So he hired me as a consultant. I started doing that for him, and then along the way, a few things happened, and it turned into a partnership. We started a growth marketing agency, and one of the first people we were speaking to is who's now my partner, Jack Zerby. He wanted help with designing and creating online content as well. We started doing that, and then I said, Jack, like, why don't what you're really good at is not teaching people how to design decks. I mean, you're really good at that too, but you're also really good at designing decks. So why don't we scale that? And he said, well, I design decks, but it's a really cumbersome process. It takes dozens of hours of my time. And he started telling me all the pain points. And I said, well, maybe we can fix those. So he said, all right, Sam, the ball's in your court. Let's see if you can fix those. So we went through his process. We went through the pain points, and it's still not perfect. I don't want to, 2 years later, we've done it enough. It's really good, but it always can be improved. And we were able to tackle a lot of those initial pain points that he didn't enjoy, collecting money from customers, some of like the design work, like the very simple, I wouldn't even call it design work, just collecting logos, like administrative work. And I was able to we were able to together build that into a process that really works and turn that into a business. And it's, 2 years later, we're growing, we're enjoying it, we're improving our system. Our clients are pretty happy. So all in all, good things.
Okay. So you started out as a consultant, or you were hired in to help with the business, and then you took over that aspect. And then how did it go? And I may have missed a part where you said, how did it go from helping that business to turning it into a service you offer for others?
Well, that's the service that we offer was the pitch decks, meaning that was his specialty, and that's what his content was created around. So I said to him, instead of just teaching people about it, let's turn this into a business, because this is extremely high impact. Only less than 1% of companies successfully raise venture capital, and in order to help big ideas come to the world, they need to. So let's help them tell their story. And that was what we did. We set out to build a process. We partnered, as partners, and that's what we did.
Gotcha. And so he already had kind of a stable of clients that you were teaching. And then you just turned them into customers for the service that you offered, or?
So in an ideal situation, yes, but in reality, no, because the people who you're teaching are a very different audience than the people who is paying for the service. There's a lot of founders, a lot of talented founders, but founders who are bootstrapping or don't have a huge budget are not going to spend a premium on having a perfectly designed deck. So it was very different audiences. But because of his experience in the industry as a founder and as someone who's involved, he was able to get some of that, at least the early leads, via his brand.
Gotcha. All right. And so he was leveraging his existing network to get those very first customers for that new service that you guys started to offer.
He actually wasn't even leveraging it, to be honest. It was inbound, so we were very blessed in that regard. But that only keeps you. But that only keeps you going for a certain amount of time. Then it became about strategizing. How do we actually bring on new customers? Where do we find new people that aren't reaching out to you and you haven't already done work for or worked with their close friends, or
Right. Okay. And so what are some of the ways that you guys have found new customers?
Yeah, so it's still a lot of experimentation and a lot of learning. But when I approach any business I work in, and I have another business as well, I'm always starting from the top. Who is my audience? Who is my my ideal client? And what are the channels that I'm going to reach them? And I've done this with my consulting clients too. So in this case, we basically have two sets of clients. We have founders, people who are actually growing a business and need to raise capital. And the second, perhaps an interesting part, is investors. So investors who raise capital from other investors, they also need a deck, right? They're now having a fund. They're not putting all that money in themselves. They need to get people to buy into their fund. So those are basically the two audiences, and also investors who advise their portfolio companies. So at first, there was a lot of back and forth. At first, we said, hey, we have investors we already work with. Let's try to deepen the relationships with them, some of these investors, and have them send us their portfolio companies. But what I learned very fast is that they do that. We do have, thankfully, we do have investors who send us clients, but they're so focused, they're so busy with their own businesses that you can't really rely on that as a growth channel in and of itself. So the investors are extremely busy. The founders are extremely busy building companies. The investors are extremely busy investing and going through, and they're both very, very busy audiences who a lot of people are trying to get their attention. So then we went to the founder side. And on the founder side, it's also a little bit difficult to make sure you're reaching the caliber or the founders that can and want to buy our service. So it also became about trying to find the ways that we can give them value and we can build trust with them without requiring a lot of them. And one of the methods that we found that works is we go into different founder ecosystems and we say, hey, we want to give a ton of value to your community and we don't want anything exchanged. We're not pitching them, we're not selling them, not anything. And we've gone in and we've done these workshops, which we've already built for our, other audience. And we now, we're obviously gearing it to each audience, but we're doing these workshops. And then after these workshops, just by default, people love what we're teaching them. People love what we're bringing to them. And a percentage of them either end up booking calls because they rather pay for the service. They realize the value in it. And if not, it's still, we're top of mind. When someone asks them about a pitch deck expert, we're top of mind. So it's actually really neat because we get to give first, and it's pretty cool because we're giving value, and it usually helps us. And if it doesn't directly help us, we feel good that we helped a lot of founders. So that's nice.
Right. So you're building that thought leadership or that authority in the industry as the pitch deck company when anybody needs it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about the other company that you mentioned. I think we got a good idea of how Design for Decks works, that story, and how you guys are growing. And you did say that Design for Decks, through the pitch decks you've designed, people have raised over $2 billion. So it's obviously an effective service as well.
Yeah, we have a good team.
One more thing about that company. You said that like investors with a portfolio of companies. Could you explain how that specifically, I guess I relate to that the most maybe, but like explain how that person would use your service.
Yeah, so it's actually in two different ways. So directly would be that an investor, most big institutional investors, venture capitalists, and even smaller ones, they're not just investing their own money, they're investing other people's as well. So they now need to go and say, hey, Paris, I'm going to be investing in Web3 startups or, I don't know, SaaS startups or whatever stage or whatever check round. Do you want to invest and earn a piece of that pie? And now the investor has to win you over. So what they have to do is they have to present a presentation in which they show, obviously, their success rates, in which they show their investing philosophy and whatever else they're going to show, who they are, how they're investing, how fast they want to deploy, how much money. So they actually need a deck as well. And we've done that for them. And the second piece is that if they have portfolio companies, they invested at a company at an earlier stage, what we call seed or pre-seed or whatever it is, or Series A, it doesn't really matter. And now this company needs to raise capital a second time or a third time or a fourth time in order to grow. So they tell them they want their portfolio companies to raise more. That's essential to keep the business alive. And they say, hey, we have a great pitch deck company. Let's bring you to them. And so that's they act as a referral, and it's in their benefit that these companies are successful in their raise because they are stakeholders in those companies or equity holders.
Yeah, it's not worth risking raising less money just because you didn't take the time to have a nice looking pitch deck.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, let's talk about your other business. You said it was called Red with Love. Tell us about it.
Absolutely. So now that we're segueing from the world of venture capital and like startups, being I've been so embedded in that
Yeah,
space, I have immense respect for founders and for venture capitalists. And I said, that's actually not the life I want. You know, I'm a father of two. My wife is in medical school. We enjoy traveling as
yeah,
well. And I want to be able to, I want to be able to build a business that allows me to enjoy all those things without the constant stress of once you raise capital, you have a lot of responsibility to a lot of different people and all sorts of other pressures. And because I have so much respect for them, I realize that's not for me at my current stage of where I am. So I keep an idea pad and I go through different ideas. And about 2 months ago, I came on an idea, a little more actually, that got me excited. And I've now built it and started selling it. So it's called Red with Love, like you said. And essentially what we're doing is we're taking, parents are giving us a voice sample, and we're then turning that into an audiobook subscription, which each month they get 5 short stories for their children read to them in, it's not their own voice, it's a cloned voice. It doesn't sound exactly like, but pretty darn close. And that way, when they can't be present at bedtime for whatever reason, or even if they can be and they're just out of energy, at least they can give their children a somewhat more personal experience, an experience that has more of an educational aspect to it. And we have other like little bells and whistles we put on to make that more immersive and educational. So yeah.
that's really cool. So the parents, do you have like a set list of words that they have to read? And I'm guessing it's like an AI generated thing or AI assisted process that
Absolutely,
helps
absolutely.
create
Yeah,
the video and everything. And so the kid can have a book read to them and it sounds like their parent or close to their parent reading to them.
yeah. You're on the money. So it's generative AI, which I know is a buzzword everyone's very excited about. But as opposed to Chat GPT, it's voice cloning. So voice cloning has advanced leaps and bounds in the past year, and which you can now get the same quality of voice with 10 minutes of audio recording as in the past you needed about 8 hours of audio recording. So I'm leveraging, existing technology, and I'm working at any time with 3 different companies because there's kind of like a race for who can have the highest quality technology. So I'm always testing all of them, and I want to have the best possible output. But what I'm really excited about is that I know it's only getting better. Like when I listen to the product now, I say, wow, it's really good, but I wish it had more emotion, certain little things that I can't, I can't build that technology, but the technology is heading there, which is really cool. And in fact, Microsoft put out a demo about a month ago that they have a product that they claim can get the same audio quality with 3 seconds of voice sample, which is really remarkable.
That's
Yeah, I don't think it's there just yet, but it's the anticipation is they're going to release it pretty shortly. And once that happens, assuming that it's getting that actual high quality output, I probably will leverage that and it will make the process even better. So yeah, that's where we're at. We give the parents a text to read. They can really read any text, but the closer the text is to the output, the better the output is. So I'm giving them short stories, all stories and fables that we've heard to record. I take 10 minutes of the recording sample. I get consent. It's very important to me that people understand what is being done with their voice, and then start producing audiobooks and sending to them each month.
okay. So what does something like that cost? Are there different plans or
Yeah, so
how do you work
so it costs $25 a month. And there is like a discount if someone buys an annual subscription. And we have like, if someone wants to buy a 1 month package for $35, they can try it out before they actually subscribe. And yeah, that's where we're at right now. We're testing different models. I would love to offer the try before you buy model. The only problem is that the bigger investment, more than the money, is that people have to sit there and consciously record 10 minutes of audio, which is a hurdle for a lot of very busy parents. So I respect that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, we offer, like, if people aren't happy with it, we of course would refund them. But I don't anticipate that being the case.
So, all right, you built this, I guess you could call it a startup, or you've been working on the technology and tying all the tubes together in the cyberspace or whatever you got to do to make it all work. So once you've built that first version, the MVP of your product, how did you go about getting that first customer for this project?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I struggled with this a lot. I struggled with my strategy a lot because every product has competitors, but this product is somewhat newer and somewhat unique, and that I felt that it would have to have, I would need a good way to get it to a larger audience fast in order to get the validation that it really is a full business. So initially, I've just been keeping it while building out the MVP, I've been keeping it close to heart, but 3 people I spoke to actually went ahead and bought it already. So that's actually pretty cool. That's all, initial audience. And my first strategy is actually going to be paid social micro influencers, for the very simple reason that they can get me into these very niche communities, these very niche audiences, momfluencers and or military parents and the likes, where I feel they'll have a good need. And I'm hoping, the campaigns are supposed to be running already a month ago, but you know how things are. Sometimes they take a little longer, but in the next week, the first campaigns will be running. And I'm getting positive signals, but we need the market to actually fully validate it, which I anticipate, which I hope will happen, I should say.
Okay. Right. And did you say you've gotten some paid customers for that?
Three
already?
already.
Or you have?
Yeah, I have three already.
And how did you say those came in?
Just people I was speaking to, I mentioned what I'm doing. They're like, well, 2 of them bought it for themselves and 1 bought it as a gift for a friend. And I have a few others who are ready, but for various reasons, I told them, like, for them, I want every step of the process to be like near perfect before I deliver to them.
Yeah. So how long has this project been?
I'm sorry? How long has this project been?
I was saying, how long has this project been alive? Like, when did you start this project?
I had inspiration for it, I would say, in November. I build pretty fast, wow. and because it's I'm right now, like when I'm building my MVP, I need to get that validation. So I leverage as much as I can existing tools, right? I do have already on my concept board, on my prioritization board, like what tools I'm going to invest in first. Once I see that it's really selling, that'll improve my efficiency or improve the output of the product. So I had inspiration in November. I started building pretty fast. I really was hoping to launch before Christmas as like a last minute Christmas gift, but it was a little bit overly eager on my part. And then, I've had a few, my kids were both homesick and a few other things that really set me back a little bit. And so November, and now we're at the end of January. So it's 3 months,
great.
3 months about, yeah.
I mean, that's incredible to go from idea to first customer in 2 months. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
2-3 months.
I feel blessed in that way, and I hope that more than the people I know will also express a lot of interest in the product.
Right. So, all right, you're getting some good feedback. You've got a few paying customers. That's a really cool concept for a startup. Did you have to like code things, or is this like a no code type startup? I mean, you just
totally no
manually
code.
like, tools.
Yeah, totally no code. So I have, as I said, I have my idea pad and my idea graveyard, which I'm always jotting down ideas and inspirations I get, and I have like a system I put them through. And there's some ideas that are also very exciting to me, but I just, like I said, they don't fit my current lifestyle and my current availability. So this one, when I realized what it is, and it's a process, it's a very simple process, but it's just putting all the little pieces together. So like how to source the books, how to collect the voice recordings, how to clone the voice, how to then apply those to audiobooks, make them audiograms so they read along, how to create quizzes. So it's all no code. Not all of it is automated. Whatever is not automated, I currently have my VA doing in the Philippines. And then I actually developed a process. I have like 64 SOPs that I've documented from A to Z, so that the second I need to scale, I can quickly hire the people and they can follow this. It's built for that anyone can apply and quickly, put my clients, put the orders through the process.
Right. 64 SOPs. So that's 64 processes just for taking somebody's audio, turning it into whatever they want to turn it into.
Well, not all of them are about order processing. Some of them are on the billing side, how to pause or cancel subscriptions. Some of them are on the administrative side, like how to onboard new employees, what access to give them. So like the business, I'm still not done, but at this point, it's all it's ready to expand very quickly.
So did you get that formula or template for what's needed in a business from like working with all the startups in the past, or how
What
did
do you
you
mean
come to
by
that,
what do you mean by formula? I'm sorry.
that like the I guess those 64 processes, like how did you know how to lay all those out?
I mean, some of them have been already archived. They're not found to be essential. But all I'm doing is thinking what exactly needs to be done, and I start building it. Like, what needs to happen? The first thing needs to happen is the person needs to buy, and then after they buy, they need to get access to a form that they can record. Maybe now's not a good time for them, so I need it to go to an email as well. What else? What else can I add that'll make this more immersive? How to add sound effects to the story? How to add more immersive effects? What else can make this more of an educational experience? Add short quizzes. How to build the quizzes? And kind of leveraging all those tools. I am using Chat GPT to help me with some of the quizzes, but it's about using the right prompts and using the right formula. So it's using like you said, a lot of no code tools, a lot of very simple tools, and at least for my MVP, that's where we're going to be. And as we grow, I still intend on staying away from code, but perhaps I would introduce like robotic process automation or other things that I've learned, not myself, but that I can hire people to do.
Yeah. When you were kind of going through ideas for starting the business or even come up with some of the processes, did you consult AI, like you mentioned, Chat GPT, to actually help you think through any of it? Because I realize that's something I've used it for, is like hitting a roadblock of like, well, let me just chat with the AI a little bit just to kind of, dust out the cobwebs and break through here.
Yeah, so I came across it's a really good question. So I came across like this validator tool, and that also is based off GPT-3, and I stuck the idea in, and I wanted to see what it spit back, and it gave me like some legitimate concerns. So it wasn't all that helpful. So I've tried it. I've used it for like riffing on copy and stuff like that. It has helped me a little bit. If I had to assign a number, I'd say like 10% or 15%, but not significantly. And now also like when I'm building for my content creator, and she needs to know what videos to make. So I came up with 20 or so ideas of my own. And then I stuck in Chat GPT, and I'm having it spit me 40 ideas that I'm then narrowing it down to another 10 or 15. So yeah, it's definitely helping my process, but it's not core, and we're not yet really ready to fully rely on them yet.
Interesting. Okay. And yeah, not to reveal too much to give you a bunch of competition, like creating a bunch of copycat services, but
copycats are fine.
Okay, there you go.
Copycats are fine. I'm okay.
Attitude.
Like I'm happy to any parent who wants to do this on their own. Like I will walk them through the process A to Z. It's totally okay with me. It's just it's not worth, unless it's done at scale. It's not worth the $25. Like it'll just take you much too long. It'll take you much too long. There's a lot of learning curve. But I don't, copycats can gladly spread. That's okay. I hope that there's enough of a market to justify copycats. That'll actually be really, really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think there could be. That's really interesting. Yet I guess that's part of your process that you're having to go through, is figuring out what's the market, your target audience, and the price point that makes sense to them, or that makes it worth that time savings of using some other tools or whatever to do that. And I guess part of that would be factoring how long would it take for somebody just to record themselves reading the story,
So they'd have to do it. Yeah. So they'd have to record the story, 5 stories a month. Each of our stories are about like 7 to 10 minutes. So it's like 50 minutes a month. And then putting it in a format that their kid can listen to it easily. Like we're giving it as an unlisted YouTube link so they can share it across devices, but no one else has access. And then creating the read along that it's an audiogram. So if like your kid is starting to identify letters or starting to read, making sure they can read it. And even like, I've been learning about typefaces that are like easier on the eyes. I'm trying, it's not going to be a perfect product, not for a very long time, but I am trying that at least now when I'm delivering my early products, they should be as much as possible something that, was invested in and that shows that we care about our customers and that our customers care about their children, that can really help them in that process. Yeah.
That military use makes a lot of sense. That seems like a really strong case there. People who have to be away from the kids a lot. It's like, timelines may not always wake up like for bedtime and that kind of thing. So that's really neat. And so is it like, generated stories as well, or is it like specific text that they'll be reading that they can
So I'm,
choose? Like the parent can choose specific books or like.
so it's a really good question. So right now the way it's built, I choose the stories. So it's 5 stories each month. I'm not using, meaning if someone would want custom stories, it's not a big deal to do that, but it would require an additional cost on my side, and I would have to pass that on as well. So right now I'm sourcing stories on my own based on certain parameters, obviously length, obviously relevance, age appropriate. I mean, uh, one of the stories that I thought was good, like after I listened to it, I'm like, wow, this is a really confusing story. Like I'm having a difficult time following it. Probably shouldn't give it to a 5-year-old or 6-year-old or 3-year-old. And then also, I'm trying as much as possible because I'm using like from literary classics, or at least from classic authors, Brothers Grimm, Charles Dickens, Oliver Wilde, and whoever else. I am trying to keep the stories in the original, but there are also points where I'll slightly edit them for sensitivity. Like I'm trying to think which story it was that had a very large amount of violence in it, so I toned it down because I don't want to be rewriting the story, but I also I need to recognize that some people may not like that, and I respect that as well.
Okay. And was that a generated story you said, or is that
No. All
one of these
stories, all
pages?
stories, all stories are
Lot
all stories are original. All stories are
Okay.
original because anything I use, I'd have to either have the author's permission or it have to be in the public domain. In which case, you have full creative license, so you can do whatever you want with the stories. And yeah, I try to keep it to the original because that's how they were written. But just like Disney and a lot of other authors, they actually take original stories and they put their own spin to it.
Okay, cool. So when you say original, but you're not saying that you guys are writing every story. You're
No, no,
saying
no.
that
I'm
you're
sorry.
finding original.
I'm finding the original as much as possible. Like there are a lot of stories that
Gotcha.
we're familiar with, like
Yeah.
Goldilocks. Goldilocks isn't
Right.
originally Goldilocks. That's like a later take on it. I like the original, like the original author, but sometimes I'm using a little bit of
Oh,
like a second or third version. So not the first, but
right.
still 80 years old or 95 years old,
Okay.
whatever it is.
Right. Because yeah, if you go way back to some of the fairy tales were extremely violent, like horror stories that slowly got watered down into kids'
A lot of
stories.
them.
But if you go like,
A lot of them. A lot of them. They're pretty violent. A lot of them have a lot of sexual undertones or overtones. And
right,
I was reading one the other day that one of the stories from like it was about like his on his fourth wife, and he like murdered his first three wives, and I'm like, wow, yeah,
gosh,
I'm not sure I should choose this one.
right, for the little kids getting tucked into bed.
Yeah,
Okay, interesting. All right. So I think we've covered those two businesses pretty well. We understand how you've gotten the customers for them, how they're doing, your target audience for each one. Um, let's do a little bit of a rapid fire section and kind of audit some of your tactics, if you don't mind.
absolutely.
All right. Let's start with traditional marketing tactics. Um, seems like everything you're doing is pretty much online based, but you're in different phases of the business. So at different times, it seems like, different types of marketing make sense. But in the traditional marketing side of things, are you using any direct marketing tactics, face-to-face meetings, cold calls, or direct physical mail?
No physical mail, no cold calls, physical meetings. I would say more virtual meetings, but yeah, all the time. To me, partnerships are a really good growth channel. And I'm actually today, it's now 11 p.m. here, but I've had four meetings today. All four of them actually to explore partnerships, which at least one of them is going to end up being a pretty strong growth channel for my growth tactic for my deck business. And
Yeah.
for Read with Love, I have quite
Okay.
a few of those in mind as well. I just haven't. I'm waiting for the first validation, and then after that, I'll go to different parents groups, writers clubs, and things like that, which I'll also be reaching out, cold outreach, and then collaborations.
Cool. All right. What about print media? Newspaper ads, magazine ads?
I haven't ever thought about print media for any of my businesses, but yeah, I had an uncle who was a publisher for like advertisement magazines, and my parents' businesses, marble and granite and all that, they did. But for me, I don't know. It never even entered my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, especially things that are all online based. It doesn't really come up as an issue. But I guess something that people have mentioned on this podcast as I've talked to different people that made sense is if you have like a specific niche audience that like has like a trade magazine or some kind of industry mag or something that's popular among that audience, it kind of justifies it for them. But
No, it's a good question. Like,
that,
yeah, maybe
yeah,
there's media. Maybe there is media that there probably is that speaks to either of my target audiences. I'm just not familiar. Maybe because at this point also most
right,
things besides books, everything I'm reading is digital.
right. And it seems like the cost, just from what I've seen at least, the costs in print magazines are still so high compared to the reach you get and the less trackability compared to online. Seems like that's going to have to go down a good bit to make it more of a legit channel.
Maybe, yeah, it's a good question. I don't know.
All right, broadcast media, TV, radio ads.
Neither, but webinars. Webinars, yes, absolutely webinars, if that counts.
Okay. All right.
And I would say, and maybe a step further, is even like newsletter sponsorships, which I've used in previous businesses, which is also a pretty nice tactic. When you find someone who has a strong, trust and brand authority with a specific audience, sponsoring that newsletter can do really, really well for you. Also, that's about niche audiences.
Okay. So that's like, yeah, and that's kind of like an extension of your like email marketing in a way, I guess. Or are you saying you're sponsoring niche newsletters yourself?
Yep.
Other people are running. Okay, you're not running your own newsletter
Yeah,
necessarily.
they have an audience. It's kind of like you said, print media. It's similar in a way, which as opposed to targeting a magazine that a specific audience reads, you're targeting a newsletter that a specific audience reads.
Yep. And much more trackable, and you can measure results a lot better. All right. What about like business swag? Printing your own merch and that kind of thing, giving away cups or business promotional materials.
So I think it's a good question. Like I've used that. I've been to events and trade shows where we've done that, and I've had events that I've hosted for companies I work with, in which we've done that as well. But to me, I would say, at least in what we're doing, the other industries maybe it's different, but for what we're doing, I found it to be at best experimental, and really it's really just one of those things that people do without usually a lot of thought. But I have, for instance, if you're a sign business, or if there are certain businesses that can do that really well. But for me, it's never it's a high cost bet, and I think the possible results are the possible upside is not all that exciting. Unless it's like, I don't know, you're getting it to, you're not going to get that much exposure from your t-shirts or your swag or whatever else you do.
Right. What about any kind of sales promotions, loyalty programs, physical cards? It's kind of related to the swag thing in a way, but anything like that?
Yeah. So what I'm actually most excited about in that world is the cash back. So as opposed to like offering discounts, like you create like a loyalty club of sorts where people get cash back on every order. And what I like about that is like, especially if they're they're getting that as credit. So they're leveraging that within your system. You're rewarding them directly for their loyalty, meaning if someone signs up, gets it, but doesn't use it, then they're not a loyal customer. And I'm not by no means an expert on it, but I have started looking at case studies and I'm quite impressed by what I've seen. So once I have at least, more than one product offering and a decently validated product, then that's probably the first promotion type item I would add to my service, to my audiobook service, I should say.
Huh. I almost didn't ask about the loyalty program type question because of the way you had framed your other answers, but okay.
Yeah.
You never know. All right. So on to the digital marketing side of things, which it sounds like you've done a lot more of. And I guess we could focus more on, well, no, you can answer it however you want across both businesses. But I'm assuming you have a website for each business.
Yeah.
And then do you use like a blog, like consistent content marketing, putting yourself out there with ongoing content for each of those?
So yeah, I've done that in the past. I built a business when I was 18, teaching people with medical marijuana licenses how they can home grow. And it wasn't me, actually. I was actually outsourcing all those writers via Fiverr, and got some really talented writers. And I was, structuring the content. And there I was using SEO, because I thought I understood it. So I was updating the blogs, and that was working nicely. Now, for the deck business, we try anything we put out. We try to put it extremely high quality. So the level of investment that requires, I can't currently commit to, but we are starting to do that with video. We're starting to use video, YouTube, video SEO, which I do have a grasp on, to drive traffic to our website. And we do have resources that we've built as part of our different masterclasses and workshops that I'm also going to be leveraging on our website to give our clients more upfront, to give potential clients more upfront. Just give them resources. I'm debating yes lead capture, no lead capture, but I think no, to be honest.
Okay.
So yeah, less on the SEO, less on the traditional SEO side, more on content as a way to build trust with an audience and give value to an audience.
Nice. All right. So this is a good segue into social media marketing. What platforms do you post organic content, if any, and what platforms do you feel like are valuable enough to run paid ads on? Facebook, YouTube, WhatsApp, Instagram, TikTok.
Yeah. So for the it's a great question as well. So for the deck business, we did at one point run Google Ads to our masterclass, and it didn't do so well. But I think that actually part of that was the offer itself. I think the offer maybe wasn't the right offer. Now we have a new service we're offering that serves a wider audience, a pitch deck review service. So now that we have a different entry level offer, we probably are going to turn on Google Ads the next month. Facebook. So that's in terms of that. The only channel I intend on using now, high intent, is reaching, there's a lot of keyword volume and pretty decent cost per click. So that's where we're going to start. In the audiobook business, I'm starting with TikTok, which is a platform I'm wholly unfamiliar with, to be very, very honest. The main reason I'm doing so is because a lot of the content that is being created, and a lot of the influencers that I have access to via agencies, and meaning not myself, I'm getting really, really good bang for the buck. And because there's the potential for virality, there's the potential for something that's controversial, something that's interesting, something that's unique to go viral. You can't bank on that. But to me, if that does happen, that would make it a lot easier for me to get my intended results. And then my next natural channel will be Facebook ads. At the end of the day, the Facebook pixel is 20 years old. They have the most data. They're the best for reaching audiences based on interest and based on niches. So I'm already ready to run that. I just don't want to deploy too many channels at once. I want to first see how we do on the TikTok side. TikTok, based on the brand, where I have content made for the brand, ads, and micro influencers. And then after that, I'm going to be going to Facebook ads.
So you produce some kind of video content then for TikTok. Do you repurpose that and just go ahead and publish it organically on all platforms, or do you just post on the platform that you run ads on?
I'll be using it organically on Facebook as well, and I also have Instagram. I have Instagram too. Some of my influencers are doing both TikTok and Instagram. So Instagram repurpose to Facebook is really easy, and if anything I see is getting a strong reception on TikTok, I'll probably leverage that on Facebook or Instagram as well.
Okay, and those are the only platforms, nothing on Snapchat, Telegram, Pinterest, Twitter?
So I have, Twitter. So for the decks, we use Twitter. My partner has a decent following, and we work on the strategy. We're working on the strategy together, but that's more his baby than mine. And we've gotten our first cold clients came through his Twitter.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think that makes sense. Yeah, for the deck design business, because that Twitter seems like it's much more active in the startup world, and
a lot of CEOs, a lot of investors. Exactly. Yeah. So that's that. Snapchat, Pinterest.
On that note, what about? Yeah.
No, sorry. Go ahead. I'm not. Yeah.
I was saying LinkedIn seemed like another one that CEOs and things might be on after mentioning Twitter. Have you used that or seen any benefit there on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I've had friends pushing me to LinkedIn for 5 years now. And eventually, I gave in a few months ago, and I'm getting quite good results in terms of reach, interaction. So I'm doubling down on that as well, trying to give a lot more value up front. And I've already gotten at this point 6 or 7 leads just from the last few months on LinkedIn. And when I say leads, I mean, it's a high-end service. So that was really cool to me. I'll be doubling down over the next 2-3 months, and I'm sure those numbers will multiply.
And so to clarify, on LinkedIn, you're not running ads, you're just posting more organic content.
To be honest, I'm barely posting. I've had less than 10 posts to date. I'm interacting with other people's content, especially, first of all, I'm enjoying consuming content. I'm enjoying learning from other people. And the places where I'm found, if I appreciate something and I comment it or I add my 2 cents or I disagree with it, it's a very easy way for you to get noticed when you don't yet have a big audience, right? My audience is small. I think at this point, right, I have maybe 800 followers on LinkedIn, something like that. I'm lucky that I'm getting good engagement. I'm happy people are appreciating the content, but it's a lot easier to go and interact with someone else's content and reach a much wider audience because they already have that audience. So that's mostly where it's been coming in from.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay. We've covered social media, paid advertising. You said it was just Google, and you're planning on TikTok and Facebook, depending on how performance goes.
TikTok's running. It's running this week already.
Oh, Facebook is for the Red with Love business.
Yeah.
Okay, and what about the Dex business? That's more developed. Are you guys running ads across everything, or how aggressive are you guys on the marketing?
Nothing. We touched Google ads.
Really?
And we're not running anything else. We're looking at, now that we have a new entry-level service where we're doing pitch deck reviews. So at that point, once I fully iron down that service, it's pretty much there, then I'll consider running Google ads as well. But that's it. TikTok, we looked at, and to be honest, it all comes down to the quality of the brand. Can we produce content that is reflective of the quality that we want to? And we just felt that given our current marketing budget, that answer is no. Like, we can do it, but we want to do it really well because we have a brand to uphold. And everything that comes out of that brand has to meet those standards. So for me, it's limiting. As a marketer, I would on one hand say, let's do it anyways, because I know it'll work to an extent. But my partners, and they're right, say brand first. So we're holding back for now.
That's very mature.
Well, it's mature of them. Very mature of them, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have that itch to try out a new tool. Let's just throw something out there, see how it works, and test it. But that makes a lot of sense, though. So most of the sales are coming in through the network or the inbound leads.
Referrals plus the workshop.
So
yeah, exactly.
Okay, interesting. All right, you said you're not worried about SEO as much right now for your businesses. You're not focused on the content side of things.
I'm not focusing on SEO. I think I have enough channels that can satisfy what I need well before I need to think about SEO.
Yeah. Well, I think that's most of the audit there. That's most of the platforms I wanted to ask you about. It's really interesting to see how you guys have got it honed in and set up to where you're focused in on your target audience, tested things, what works, as far as the pitch deck business. And it'll be interesting to see how you're.
We're always testing.
Okay.
I keep a board for each business in which I have 4 stages. So I have my concept stage. That's, it's my partner system, which I've adopted as well. Any idea, no matter how small, whatever it is, no friction, it goes in the concept stage. Then a couple times a month, I go and look, what can I move to prioritize? What has potential for high impact? What's within our current ability? What's reaching what our objectives we're trying to reach? Move it to prioritize, plan it, launch it, and then track it, check what the effect was. Do we double down? Do we scrap it? Do we adjust it and try it again? And I put everything through these processes in both. So, I have a lot of ideas there, tons of ideas in both boards. And it's just a matter of what we experiment with this month. What are we trying this month? What are we trying, to move forward and, you have a lot of losses. I wouldn't call them losses, but a lot of experiments that don't work, and then you have a few that work, and you double down on those.
I think I need a Sam Eisenberg book on processes, the process of processing your processes.
I work with people that are much smarter than me, and I try to learn from them a little. So that's all it is. But happy to share any frameworks or if any of the listeners want.
Yeah.
My templates are like extremely simple. I'm not a designer, but they work. In Notion, whatever it is, I'm happy to share. And if it's helpful, then God bless.
Awesome. Well, let's close it out with maybe give the just direct to your, let's say if your target audience is listening, what would be that pitch for each of the businesses, and where can they find you guys online?
Well, first of all, yeah, if you're a founder and you're listening, awesome to have you here, but you should be investing just building your business. You need to be doing that full time. But designfordex.com, you can find us. You can find me on LinkedIn, Sam Eisenberg. If you have questions, I don't bite, reach out. You need resources. I'm not trying to sell you. I'll be happy to give you them as well. And Read with Love is Read, READWITH.LOVE. If you're a busy parent or an uncle or aunt or grandparent, and you think you know a child who can benefit from this, or a parent who can benefit from a little bit more peace of mind, then please do try our product. Please do give me your feedback, and please do help me take it from MVP to polished, finished version, and I'll try to reward you for that as well. Everyone, the first customer is always the hardest to get, and those are the ones we have to take the best care of.
Perfect way to end it. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you so much, Paris. I really appreciate it. It's great being here, and I look forward to continuing the conversation offline. Take care.